You're listening to Your Calm Parenting Path. I'm your host Nina, a mindful parenting coach and mum, here to help you go from overwhelmed and reactive to calm, confident and connected with your kids. This show is for parents who want to raise their children with more patience, less stress and a whole lot more joy. Because small shifts make a big impact and you can build the parenting life you've always wanted. If you want to see what I'm up to, follow me on Instagram at Mindful Parenting Lifestyle, and don't forget to hit follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Let's get started. Welcome back to Your Calm Parenting Path. Today's episode is a little bit different. On this podcast, we often talk directly to mums about the mental load, the overwhelm, and how to show up more calmly and connected with our kids. But today we're widening the lens and bringing dads into the conversation in a more intentional way. Because while so much of this journey starts with us, it doesn't exist in isolation. The way our partners show up, their emotional world, their experiences, and their capacity to regulate themselves has a huge impact on the whole family. So today we're exploring that space with Alison D'Vine, the founding director and principal practitioner at Sagency WA. Alison, I'm really glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel privileged that I can speak on your podcast because I really enjoy listening to it.
I'm so glad that you reached out because this is a topic that we haven't really talked about on the podcast. And so I think it's a really great conversation that we can have to share with the listeners. To start with, can you share a little bit about yourself and the work you do at Sagency WA?
So a little bit about myself. So I am neurospicy. I have ADHD. I am a mum of 4. I've got a 16-year-old, a 9 who's going to be 10 in September, and I've got twins who just turned 5 in March. I'm also a single parent. I was married for 12 years and I've now been separated for about coming on to 3 years now. So that's a little bit about, I guess, the personal history of Alison.
Yep.
And a bit about Sagency. So about 3 years ago, it was funny because it was almost like the marriage ended as a result of me starting up Sagency. And it was almost like there was issues in the background in the marriage, but
Yes.
Sagency was like the last straw that where I had this passion and this vision of what I wanted to create, and he didn't go along with it. And I had to choose myself to be authentic because that's something I speak about to guys in group all the time is that there's you can't live a life unless you live an authentic life, right? If I'm saying one thing to the guys in group and then I'm going home to a partner that's like, oh, your work's shit or like close it down, whatever, and I'm going along with it and then I choose that path, then I'm not living an authentic life because I'm going to be settling. I'm not going to be representing my own needs, my passions. And as a result, it's going to build that resentment. And like John Gottman talks about in the 4 horsemen that signifies the end of a relationship, it starts off with blame and then criticizing it starts off with either, then blaming, then stonewalling, and then contempt, right? And it's like, and he says contempt is the biggest indicator of like the marriage is going to end by like close to like 99%.
Wow.
And I didn't want contempt in my relationship. And I just knew that if I had gone down the path of just going, you know what, yes, I'll go with the flow, I'll shut down Sagency or not start this up or take it to its, next level.
Yeah.
But there would have been contempt. And also being, a bit neurospicy, like you don't like change. And also when change happens, chaotic. So it was a huge step for me. I started Sagency with the vision of doing a men's behavior change program that was really different to all the current models that are present in Perth at the moment.
Yep.
So at the moment, when you have been ordered to do a behavior change program, whether it's through criminal court or family court, your only options prior to Sagency would be to go through the NGOs. And the problem with the NGOs, as great as they are and they receive government funding, is that they have these crazy long wait lists.
Yeah.
And they also, in some ways, do not meet the practical needs of the client as much as they are like the psychoeducation. So they provide the psychoeducation, but they don't always provide the therapy or the case management that we know needs to be created in order to do behavior change. Like, if you think about any males in your life, you can't just tell them what to do, and be logical about it. You just can't be like, so this is the reasons why on my list that shouldn't be doing these behaviors. Like you need to be looking at what's under the behaviors. And this is what I speak to my clients about in group as well, because the Saturday that just passed, the topic was standing up to family and domestic violence in the community, right? And so I was saying to the guys, what would you say if like a mate of yours acted in a particular way or spoke badly about his partner or, did XYZ? They were like, I'd cut him off. I'd tell them to pull their head in or tell them, cut it out, or I'd cut the friendship off. And I'm like, well, you guys have come through this program. And what I found is when I work with men, you don't look at the behaviors themselves. You look at what's under the behaviors. So basically, you look at why these behaviors are being perpetrated. So is there a need for intimacy? Is there like a need of their needs not being represented? Do they have a lack of consequential thinking, which is that idea of being able to think through your consequences before you act on them? Is there a need to do conflict management? Is there a need to do emotion awareness? Is there a need to do emotion regulation? Because you can get some guys that are, well, I've done therapy and, like now with my therapist, I'm really aware of my emotions and I know how they are. So, you have to just handle it. And if you can't handle it, that's on you then, right? But emotions come with a two-part. It's not just being aware of your emotion, it's then regulating it and expressing it in a safe manner, right? So when we look under the needs, that's when that therapy happens. And some of the current models, they are under the pump, a lot of these NGO facilitators.
What does NGO stand for?
Non-government organizations.
Okay.
So that's like all the non-government, not-for-profit in Perth, for example, that would get funding from like the government. When Roger Cook's like, we've given 10 billion or 10 million, whatever, to DV. That's who it would usually go to.
Right.
They're well funded, but they don't always do a holistic model, right? So I wanted to create that holistic model that incorporates therapy, case management.
Yeah, great.
The psychoeducation, but also the accountability. So the other thing that's really different about my program is, so for the past 6 years prior to Sagency, 7 years, I was working for Anglicare, who was subcontracted by the Department of Justice, right? So when we would have these guys come through, we would have to do the reports for them that said like how they were going in group towards the end, how they sort of finished in group to show that accountability. Because some guys will just, again, rock up to group and be like, well, I finished the 22 sessions or 24 sessions and see, I've got the certificate that says it, so I'm fine. But the reports that I believe is a really important adage on that the NGOs don't do, that we do in a lot of detail, is really important, that kind of defines like the guys that are just rocking up versus the guys that are actually taking accountability and moving towards making those shifts and change.
Fantastic. So you really wanted to live your authentic life. So I love that. So kind of practice what you preach, and especially in your relationship. Make sure that you are following your own principles in regards to that. And then helping those men when they come in to do the sessions, I guess identifying the ones that are there just because they have to be there, the ones that are there because they want to be there, to help them. So can you tell us a bit more about who you actually work with? You've spent many years working with men in family and domestic violence. What would bring someone to come and work with you?
Well, I mean, I guess you'd mentioned like the men that just have to be there versus the men that want to be there, right? So I truly don't see a difference in the two, because I think if I can get a man through the door, and usually when it comes to asking for help, being a man from what I've seen, and I speak from like anecdotal evidence, I'm not a man, but I can speak from speaking to men for the past 10 years, is that the first step is the hardest step.
Yeah.
Walking through the door, whether they're forced by the court, like criminal court, to say like, if you don't do it, you're going to end up back in prison, or whether they're forced through by a family court to say, if you don't do this, you won't see your kids.
Right.
Or whether they're through by what we call a social mandate, which is like a partner saying, if you don't do this, we're going to break up.
Right.
Work saying, if you don't do this anger management or this behavior change program, we're going to let you go.
Right.
So getting them through the door is the first step. So I see all men as the same, is that like we've grown up in a world, I'm a millennial, right? And like so millennial upwards, I can't speak for all the Gen Zers who are like very well in touch with everything and have been raised differently. But millennials upwards, we were told this is how a boy acts, this is how a girl acts.
Yeah.
Boys like blue, girls like pink. Boys, like sticks and stones, and girls like dollies and, all that kind of stuff. So for those men, it's all the men that come through. And in some ways, I see my brother in all those men. I see my friends in all those men. I see like my co-facilitator, Martin, who's my senior co-facilitator, in all those men, because we have all grown up with those same messages. And not only do men police other men on those messages, but their partners do as well, because as a woman, we've grown up with that. So men don't show feelings, men aren't emotional, men are take charge, men are meant to be the ones that in a crisis are the ones to step up. But what if you have, God, I'm a mum of 3 boys, right? So like my youngest, he is very emotional. And so is my oldest. They're just emotional creatures. And like, I love it that they show their emotions.
Yeah.
But like, if there was a crisis, they would just be like, oh God,
What do I do?
Yeah. Whereas my middle child, if there was a crisis, he would be in like a gun.
Yeah.
He would just be in there, it. So not all boys are built the same. Not all men are built the same. But because we've grown up with these narratives where men police men on it and women police men on it, women police their partners on it, it can be really challenging for any man to walk through that door. So in all realism, I truly see all the men that come through as the same in that they all need help in some way. And as long as they're willing to work, I say, you give me 50%, I'll give you 150. I will bat for you. I'll go in for you.
Wow, good on you.
You just need to give me that 50%, mate, and then we'll go the rest of the way together.
Oh, I love that. I really do. And I'm thinking as well that it's also just culture in general, TV and movies and that kind of thing also sends those messages as well that they have to live up to certain roles.
100%.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting to think about that too. So when we talk about men addressing their trauma, what does this actually look like in real life?
So I actually came across this really interesting TikTok, and please don't laugh because whenever I say this in group, the guys are always like, and you and your TikToks. And I'm like, well, I need from you guys, okay? I work with these 5 days a week. I need a break. TikTok is my break.
I love it.
But there was this study, it was called the Dutch study on like mothers in the Netherlands, I believe, who were like going through war and famine. And so basically, when they did the studies on these women who were starving, and so then when they had their children, those women, their children were predisposed to diabetes, heart conditions, potential mental health issues, etc., right?
Yeah.
And then their children's children had the same follow-on effects. Even if the women that were carrying these children didn't have diabetes, heart conditions, mental health conditions, their children did, and then their children's children did, right? And so then there was a follow-up study that looked at, well, what if we create like more a nutrient-enriched environment where these same people have healthy nutrients and they have emotional support and relationship support and community support and social support, but physical support as well, like your Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah.
Which is your essential food, shelter, warmth, all that kind of stuff. If we provide that all to them, let's see what happens. And then they, following like kids and grandkids, didn't have the same conditions they did. So this is something that we call epigenetics. So epigenetics is when you have these predisposed conditions in your genetic DNA, but then certain things unlock them, right?
Yep.
So in this case, it was the war and the famine that had unlocked the heart disease, obesity, and all that sort of stuff. Then once they sort of fixed it, I guess, by treating the actual cause of it, then that gene kind of switched itself off. That's kind of how trauma works as well.
Right.
So, the ACEs study done in the 90s by a lot of, the Babette Rothschild and Dan Siegel and all of that, Peter Levine, they looked at the ACEs study, which said when children go through childhood trauma and the higher their ACEs score, so ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, the higher their ACEs score was, depending on what happened in their childhood, the more likely they were to have addiction issues, sleeping issues, physical health issues, like a higher rate of like early death, et cetera, right? So the ACEs study shows the impact of trauma has similar to like famine in a way, right? So then if we can meet men where they're at, right? And I mean, it applies to both men and women, but I work with men.
Yeah, of course.
If we can meet men where they're at and kind of unpack some of those familial patterns and unpack some of those traumas and then start to kind of help them explore it, unpack it. The goal is that they will then kind of like switch off some of those ACEs study scores for their kids.
Wow.
And that's kind of how trauma works. It's not easy. It's not simple. Honestly, like I've had men on my couch crying more than I can tell you. And I'll often say, I don't feel like my work's done until maybe he cries on the couch.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way. I'm not a dominatrix. It's more like that's when you show like their mind and body is connected.
Yes.
Because a lot of men are so connected from their body that they're feeling all these emotions underneath, But because their mind and their heart and their body are not connected, they'll ignore it and they'll go towards like workaholism, maybe the gym, maybe drinking, maybe doing drugs, maybe infidelity, maybe pornography, maybe gambling.
Yeah.
Or else it is to distract. So when you can get them back to their body, addressing their trauma, and the head and body and the mind connection all kind of sync up, that's when you see those tears. And that's when you're like, wow, there's some deeper work done by the man, not by me, by him wanting to do the work.
Yeah, fantastic. So that's addressing that trauma. If it's unresolved, how does that kind of show up in parenting?
Again, I'm a bit of a geek, okay? So I'm just going to all with studies and whatever.
Love it.
So there was a study done ages ago, I think it was the 60s, called Ghosts in the Nursery, maybe 70s, I can't remember. That basically said that when you have had unresolved trauma, when you've had those sorries that you've never had come, when you've had no one believing in you, when you've had the person, telling you that you're bad over and over again, you might be okay for a little bit as an adult, but the moment you have your child, all those ghosts in the nurseries appear itself. So, shame that you felt as a child, it'll appear as a parent. Like, I'm not a good enough man. I'm not there for my partner. I don't understand when my child's crying. Why am I sad that my child's born when I should be happy? Why am I tired? Why shouldn't I be elated? Why can't I juggle work, children, and my wife's needs? Like, am I not a good enough man? So that's kind of like how that, the ghosts in the nurseries will appear. And they're pretty huge factors that kind of do perpetuate like ongoing, like a relationship breakdown, mental health issues, and like also in the extreme ends, family and domestic violence. So that's kind of how it appears. But the good news is, because I'm the eternal optimist, I'm not going to just give you the bad news. I'm going to give you the good news, is that there was a follow-up study done that said there was a lady that was like, well, there's lots of parents that have had these adverse, childhood experiences, but they have also been okay parents. Like, they're pretty good. No one's the perfect parent. And I have that saying, nobody comes out of their childhood unscathed. We all have our own traumas, just different degrees of it. But how are these people able to function, have good kids, have good relationships with their kids, with their partners, community, etc.? So she did this study. And then she titled her study called Angels in the Nursery. And what she found was, when your child is growing up, or when you are growing up as a child, all you need is one person that truly saw you.
Wow.
That truly made you feel seen, felt, and validated. And by like being seen, felt, and validated, that became your angel in the nursery. So when the ghosts come into the nursery, for example, the angels fight them off, right? And so that experience of being seen, felt, and validated can change the trajectory of your life, or like, your parenting. So think about it in the context of how it appears in parenting. Well, it can appear as a ghost in the nursery, where you're like disconnected, you're disjointed, you're not happy, or, you do your work, you address the trauma, you have a therapist that helps you feel seen, heard, and validated. Or you can have a mentor, or you can have a men's group, or you can have anyone that fills that space to help you feel seen, heard, and validated. And then that creates the recipe for the angels in the nursery. So, there is that chance to kind of turn it around. It doesn't have to be all doom and gloom, I suppose.
Oh, I really love that. You often hear about the children that struggle a lot in their home life. They have a teacher that they could always talk to, there's that kind of story as well.
Or the footy coach.
Or
the best man's mum, or, whatever.
So having someone there, and I think that's really cool. And then, as you said, if they haven't had that person, going to see a therapist, going to talk to someone who can help them feel seen, heard, and validated. That's fantastic. In your Calm Parenting Path podcast, we talk a lot about our own emotional regulation, how to manage our own emotions as a mum. If there's some mums listening that do carry the mental load at home, how can the father's ability or inability to regulate himself impact that whole family dynamic? And maybe what are some early signs that the dad might be struggling with that emotional regulation?
That is such an interesting question, because I personally have personal anecdotal information to give to that. But I also have group work, and I'm just kind of in my head, I'm going through the library. If anyone was the old 90s kids, the library with the Dewey Decimal System, you can't choose which card to pull out. My brain's currently trying to do that at the moment. So just bear with me a second, because I guess I probably wouldn't be authentic and true to myself, as I always speak about in other podcasts that I've guested on, if I didn't speak about my truth, right? So for me, when things got harder after the twins and I was undiagnosed initially and everything got really hard, because prior to that, I was really good at like doing the 2 degrees. At the time I was doing 2 degrees. I had 2 jobs. Well, actually it was 1 degree, 1 training in psychodrama. I had 2 jobs. I had the 2 kids, the house, the husband. I was managing and juggling it all, and it never was a problem.
Yep.
And at the time, my husband wasn't always present and available for whatever his reasons are, and I can't speak to that. But at the time, I didn't notice it. Honestly, like I was just like a little speedy road runner, like go, 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 go. It was until I had my twins and the world kind of like just stopped and paused, and everything got too hard, because it was not just one child, because we had planned for the 1 child, but we didn't plan for the 2.
Oh, I couldn't imagine it.
Once the twins came along and my whole world changed, I didn't know how to manage it. I didn't know how to handle it. Like, I didn't even know what was wrong with me. I just kept getting these migraines every week. And then I would go to my doctor and they just kept giving me tramadol and, other medication and whatever, and just not treating the cause of it. And it was only until I started talking to a few friends at work, they were like, I think you have ADHD. And I'm like, no, I don't. And they were like, here are a list of the things that you do that are weird, Alison. And I'm like, doesn't everyone do those things? And they're like, not everyone has 5 pairs of shoes in their car in case they forget a pair of shoes. And you do a lot. And when you get into a stranger's car that you're driving, you have no shoes to get out in public. Yeah, that's not normal. And I'm like, oh, okay then.
Light bulb.
That was just like one snippet of it, right? So I got diagnosed. But until then, like him not dealing with his issues around having twins and not planning for this, because our twins were born prem. The entire pregnancy was stressful.
Yeah.
It was a painful. For the first 6 months, we did not sleep.
No.
But we were like constantly watching them. And I had this fear, like it was in my head, but I was scared they would die, just because everyone told me twins, when they're born prem, one of them might pass away.
Yep.
So until they passed the 6 months SIDS, I even Googled it on SIDS, like, what is the safe time to start loving your kids in case they do die from SIDS? And apologies, I'm not making light of it.
Yep.
And my heart was cold to my twins until I Googled that date. And when it says 6 months, it was like, at 6 months, it's almost like I gave myself permission to love my twins.
You opened your heart to them, yeah.
And I opened my heart to them, right? Because that's how I deal with my emotions. Call it an avoidant attachment, if you will. But I dealt with my stuff. I went and saw a psychiatrist. I got my help. I started doing my therapy, My ex-partner did not. And that showed, because like even when we looked at our family photos, because I did this thing where I was constantly taking photos of the family and doing our annual family photo shoot, as I called it, where we'd get a professional photographer to do photos of us. And I just noticed over the years after the twins were born, because we were together for 2 more years after the twins were born, 2.5 years. So it went from him being really smiley when we got married, less, and then less, and then less, and then less. And then when the twins were born, every photo of him was with a grimace on his face. This really neutral or grimace or angry. And so when I look back on those photos, at the time I would have been clocking it, because ADHDers were very hypervigilant up on stuff. So I would have been clocking it. And that mental load would have made it harder and harder for me.
100%.
I would have kept more things from him. I would have not told him the truth all the time. Maybe sometimes I have stayed away late at work. When I first started Sagency, I would stay back till 10 o'clock sometimes at work just to avoid going home to an argument.
Wow.
And that was not because I was a shitty human. It was because I just felt so much pressure that I had to hold the world, which was my kids, and my work, and my mental stability, and my qualifications, because I was still kind of training and stuff, and the house, and the bills.
All the things.
And every man and dog. And on top of that, managing him. Managing when I come home, what show are we going to watch? Because I don't know if that's going to start an argument. Or what am I going to cook? And it wasn't huge, like knockdown, drag out arguments. They were just like bickering arguments, but I didn't need that in my because I'm already up to capacity, right?
And it builds, doesn't it? Builds and builds.
It does. It builds and builds and builds. And then it got to the end where it's like death by 1,000 cuts by the time because he left. As sad as the relationship ending was, I remember the first week that he left, I picked them up from daycare, they were bathed, they were watching something on Disney, they had dinner, and I just made myself mega-ring 2-minute noodles, and I ate it, and I sat down and I watched something ridiculous, I can't remember what it was, on TV. Felt like this,
big weight lifted.
Just, I don't have to carry another person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when I was thinking about the anecdotes, I was like, I could talk about the men in group, but I can talk about my experience because this is what I tell the men.
Yeah.
And more realistic because, I can give them experiences of, well, this is how men act and this is how men feel, yada, yada. But until I can tell them as a woman, and again, my story is not like the same as all of their partners, but it gives them an insight, right? And until they can maybe get that empathy, I guess, perspective from my story, then they're not going to be able to do it for themselves. So, yeah, I guess that was like a long-winded way of answering your question. That's okay.
Yeah. So some of those signs that they're not processing those emotions, you mentioned he stopped smiling a lot and there was always cause for some kind of argument. You couldn't relax around him because you were worried that something was going to start. Eggshells, yep.
And, I'd want to do things on the weekend and we'd go during the week, we'll do something on the weekend. And it never came about.
Never happened. Yeah.
And it was because of the grimace on his face. And I'm like, you're not happy.
Yeah.
Then, it'd be like, I'll do the backyard on the weekend or I'll, do the blah, blah, blah on the weekend. And the weekend came. It never happened,
Never happened.
And then it was up to me to, organize a gardener because the backyard was getting out of control and we had kids,
Yeah.
And there was times when he'd have that grimace on so bad where I would just take my kids to my parents' house or to family or other friends' outings and they'd be like, let's call him Mr. X. Where's Mr. X? And I'd be like, he's not feeling well or he's working and I'd make up excuses for him.
Yeah.
That was like some of the signs. And honestly, it wasn't until I literally walked away from it that I saw them. So like me being aware of it now, I'm able to give the men that perspective of these are your signs if you're able to pick it up, like you're not engaging in family or friendship stuff, if you're not following through with what you say, you're getting more irritated and snappy than usual, if you're not keeping your word, if you're not happy in general, if you're looking like grimacing every time your partner sees you, none of those things gonna make her like connect with you or have intimacy with you or have sexy time. Like, no, that doesn't work that way. And then you can't get angry and be like, well, she didn't do that for me, so I didn't do this for her. No, it doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah. I guess one thing I'm thinking of is that we as women and as partners, we don't want to take on the training, I guess, of emotional regulation for our partners because that's just another thing to add to our plate. But what are some things that we can do to support them in doing the work?
Yeah.
We need to maintain our own boundaries and emotional safeties, but what are some things that we can do to help them through this time?
All I can say is you're probably not going to like the answer, but it's you have to take on the load and engage in your own emotional regulation.
Yep.
Because if you can't regulate yourself, you can't regulate your kids and you can't regulate your partner.
Yep.
Imagine you've got this crazy mental load that I was talking about with myself. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but say if I was, and I'd done therapy for like 20 years, 10 years before that, right? 10, 15 years before that.
Yeah.
Say if I hadn't done my own therapy, if I'd gotten all like, in his face, that would have been a knockdown, drag out fight every single time. You don't have to fix your partner. You don't have to cure him. You don't have to regulate him, but you have to be a good role model to him.
Yeah.
We're finishing up soon, so I can just probably end it saying a quote from Abraham Lincoln, which is, point your feet in the right direction and stand firm.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, point your feet in that direction of your emotion regulation.
Yeah.
Of your emotional awareness, of your boundaries, and then you stand firm. You be that role model. If they meet you at that, great. If they don't, your children do not need to be in that space.
That's so powerful.
And that's kind of what I would end in.
Beautiful. Because one of my questions is one small shift that could create a big impact for fathers wanting to be more present and safe with their children. Could you speak to that finally?
I would say it for all parents. Point your feet in the right direction and stand firm.
Beautiful.
Figure out your core values. Figure out what's important to you. Figure out how you want to be as a parent.
Yeah.
So if your children are writing your obituary at the end of your life, what do you want your legacy to look like? My story as a parent. Work that out, guys. And be honest with yourselves and don't sugarcoat it. Don't think, oh, well, I can lie, No, because you can't lie to yourself. You can lie to your therapist. You can't lie to yourself.
Yeah. That authenticity piece coming back again.
It does. You got to be authentic with yourself because RuPaul says if you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. Amen.
Oh, Alison, it has been amazing to talk to you. I can see you're just a wealth of knowledge and have so much experience in helping men through these challenging times. So thank you for the work that you do and for helping them and in turn helping the mums as well. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about your work or to get some support?
They can find me at sagencywa.com.au, or you can just Google my name. It's a very rare name, Alison, and then it's D''Vine, V for Victor. And if you Google it, you will find me in Perth. Yeah, we do men's work, so there's nobody else.
Is all your work in person or is it online as well?
Both. We do both. So,
cool.
Because we work with FIFO guys, we actually even have interstate guys that log on to our online stuff.
Fantastic.
So, we work Australia-wide. So, yeah, we provide online and face-to-face counselling sessions. And we provide them not just for the men, we also provide them for children and women,
right,
which is like a new thing that we've started doing. I've always been a child counsellor for a while. Yeah, so we provide that now. But yeah, so if you feel like someone or that you love needs counselling, you can just point us in the direction and then trust me, call me and I will wrangle them into it. No, just kidding. I won't.
I love it.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
A little bit. Oh, look, thank you so much, Alison. It's been a really great conversation. I'm really grateful to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Nina.
Thank you so much for being here, listener, and taking the time to listen to this conversation. As always, I just want to invite you to take a moment to sit with what you've heard today. There might have been something that really resonated, something that felt a little uncomfortable, or maybe something that gave you a new perspective. And that's where the real value often sits. You don't need to take on everything at once. Just one small shift, one moment of awareness can start to change how things feel in your home. If this episode brought something up for you or you know someone who might benefit from hearing it, feel free to share it with them. And if you'd like to keep learning and exploring this work, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. Now, after Alison and I had finished recording this interview, she put forward the offer to run a Q&A session for listeners that might be interested in learning more about helping their partner with self-regulation, about navigating tricky situations with partners. So I wanted to put this out there for listeners. If this is something that you're interested in, if you have any questions that you'd like Alison to answer about this topic, I invite you to please send me an email to nina@mindfulparentinglifestyle.com.au with the question, and I can put it towards Alison and we can actually run a question and answer session, a Q&A session with listeners. I think this would be a great thing for people to get into. So please get in touch if you'd like to ask Alison a question or you'd like to dig a little deeper in what Alison's been talking to today. I'm really glad you're here, and I'll speak to you next time on Your Calm Parenting Path. Thanks for listening to Your Calm Parenting Path. I am so glad you're here, and I hope this episode gave you something useful to take into your parenting journey. If you'd like to dive deeper, sign up to my mailing list at mindfulparentinglifestyle.com.au for more tips and insights, or book a free chat to learn how we can work together. And don't forget to hit follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. I look forward to speaking with you next time on Your Calm Parenting Path.